I wanted to talk a little bit about envy. Now, in today's world, we kind of misconstrue the meanings between envy and jealousy. Now, jealousy involves something that you have that you're afraid of losing. Envy is when you don't have something and somebody else has it, and that causes great disturbance in your life if you allow it to. I'm currently reading a book called The Difficulty of Being Good by Guru Chan Das. I highly recommend it. It frames the epic of the Mahabharat into a useful philosophical tool. I began to focus on one aspect of his interpretation in the Mahabharat regarding envy, one of the 7 deadly sins, might I add, interestingly enough. So the Mahabharat states, "Any man who envies others for their conduct, beauty, courage, family lineage, happiness, success, and favor has an eternal illness." That's powerful. That's extremely powerful. I began to think deeply about envy. How much envy can slowly destroy our inner beings, creating a nihilism, a depression that is just can spiral downwards to the infinite negative. I was recently reading a study that had interesting data involving depression in correlation to social media. Now, those who were more depressed appeared more affected by social media envy. So they were comparing and contrasting their lives with others. It makes sense, doesn't it? Whether they were shown positive social media profiles or negative, they still felt envy. It's worthy to note that no matter what, these depressed people still had envy, regardless of the negativity of the profile or the positivity of the profile. They still had it, which means that depressed people are more susceptible to envy. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, depression, it just can invoke more depression. You can spiral out of control with this nihilistic idea, and if you are envious in your life, you're always wanting more. You're always wanting more, and maybe you don't know why. Maybe you don't understand why. But it's there. It's there. Maya, illusion. Maya's always there. Illusion. It's an illusion. It can create a nihilism in you that is so deep you do not want to even begin to go down that road. You do not want to go down that path. So basically, the more depressed we are, the more we focus on the negatives and what we don't have compared to others. That makes sense completely. There's no gratitude for what you and only you have. If you're more depressed, it's much easier to become envious of others, hence less of an attitude of gratitude. Now, my thoughts are, we all envy in one way or another, consciously or subconsciously, comparing and contrasting, seeing how our lives are aligned to what we know or don't know of what we could be compared to others. You may see your neighbor. He just purchased the latest model car and you feel a pulling sense of envy. Deep down, why do they get to have that nice car? I don't. Why does that person have the latest smartphone with all its cool technological features? I don't. So why don't I have those things? Why am I not acquiring those things? Why does my life suck? Well, you're depressed, you're nihilistic, you've been swallowed whole by envy. You're comparing your path in life to a completely different path of only yours. You don't use envy as a motivator to make small steps towards your full potential. Instead, you wallow in it, deciding to become the victim. I worked for a company, and I was very, 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 very motivated. Very, very motivated to do well in this company. I wanted to rise the ranks. And what I found was that the harder I worked, the more my coworkers began to resent me, become envious. They didn't have that drive that I had to want to further myself in this career. And they did not like me for this reason. And they were envious of that motivation factor that I had. And this caused all sorts of problems in the relationships at my work. Now, not being aligned with any sort of goal creates depression itself. They harnessed a victim mentality. They became the victim of Devon. He is doing all he can to rise, and he's so motivated. Why don't I have that? Why can't I do that? Stagnancy in life, or giving up, you could say, seems to lead us into deep contempt for ourselves and our others, because we know deep inside the possibility of the positives we could achieve. But as I stated before, we tend to focus on the negative events, the failures, and we compare our failures to the successes others are pursuing. We tend to think more about what could go wrong in life before anything negative has even happened. Now, how you confront envy, we all have it, will be the determining factor of how you can bring yourself slowly out of that negative and into the positive. You are no longer the victim, you are the hero. Instead of being bitter and envy, instead of being the victim, you could be the hero. You could be the conqueror. You could use envy to be your motivator to change. If we dig deep enough and question the why and where of our envy, we begin to change. I'll just say it's better to shoot for the stars and land on the moon. You can still desire to go further, and you're one step closer to the infinite. If we don't understand what we envy, we won't be able to fully understand ourselves. We will wander as the victim and lash out at those who do not wish to be the victim alongside of us. Being a victim constantly is a dangerous mistake. See yourself as a hero. See yourself as the hero, someone who can do the best they possibly can given the circumstances, the cards that they have been dealt, the cards you've been dealt. Not everybody will draw the king, but if you don't continue to draw from the cards, you'll never discover the king inside of you. You will only focus on that person who has produced the facade of having the king and give up. There's no use. Nihilism sets in. Little do you know, the person who holds the king can easily fall into despair also. What's the need to compare then? There is no need. Don't compare your path that you are going on to another's. Do not be a victim of envy. Use it as a motivator. If you notice envy, observe it, write it down, write down what you felt at that exact moment. What feeling? What came about? What was that envy right there? What were you envying right there? What caused that envy? You will be amazed at how you feel by simply being willing to fight your inner darkness, turning it from a chaotic mess to a beautiful understanding. In summary, do not envy unless you are able to understand where it can take you. It can destroy the soul, absolutely wreck your entire life, or it can motivate you to start the process of change. You can be grateful for the things that you have that others do not. You can turn your darkness into the light. You can turn your darkness into a light for others. You be the hero. Do not be the victim.